Hey everyone, I am so excited to announce that Love Conquers Fear, Humanity, AI, and the Age of Abundance for All is now a best-selling book on USA Today, America's newspaper. It's also in the #1 position on several categories at Amazon, and I can't tell you how much this means to me for this book to be received with so much love. Thank you so much for all of your support. Please keep the love coming. I get multiple emails a day from you on how much you're enjoying this book. And as I mentioned, my favorite format for it is Audible. I read the book myself. It's by far and away the hardest speaking job I've ever had. And the afterword, written by Mark Gober, and the forward, written by J.D. Messenger. But also, this hardcover is just absolutely amazing in terms of the quality. And you can also get it on Kindle. Please support the work, and I hope it moves you as it moved me in writing it. It is my love letter to humanity, it is my soul song, and it is my manifesto all in one. Thank you so much.
If you think about how we live today, I mean, obviously we live in a world of abundance compared to previous times. It's not evenly distributed around the world, but huge abundance already. This is just going to continue. 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they'll look back now and they'll be like, wow, I mean, look how far we've come. I think it's going to be stunning. And not just in physical wealth, but in unimaginable health by our standards. I think we'll see extensions in healthy human lifespan, maybe substantial ones. There's no physical law that says we can't be extremely healthy for a very long time. There's no reason why, especially with AI, we can't tackle this challenge.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Love Conquers Fear podcast. I've been doing a tremendous amount of reading recently. As you know, I always listen to books on Audible, and that lets me pack in a lot of material because I'm able to listen while being kinetic, going on hikes, doing the dishes, doing the laundry. I joke with friends that it's one of the sexiest things I do for my wife. I have been listening to a lot of books that I would kind of loosely put in the Christian framework. And part of what was the draw for me in that is I was on a hike with a good friend. As you know, I'm Jewish by background, and he's a Christian. And he was the same friend, Steve, that recommended that I finally read the Tao Te Ching and the Bhagavad Gita. And I listened to him, that was September of last year, and he specifically told me about the Stephen Metzl versions. Stephen Metzl, if you listen to him on Audible, he just sounds like an angel. His voice is absolutely beautiful and so meditative. And so he was recommending that I finally listen to those. I did. Both of those made it into my book, Love Conquers Fear. And it really brought out a whole different level of texture in my book and started me down this path of seeing how much synchronicity there was between the core messages in ancient spiritual text. And I've been diving into that ever since. I've really been diving recently into the Quran and into Sikhism and seeing all the synchronicities between Judaism and Christianity and Buddhism and Hinduism, etc. And so this book that he recommended to me on this recent hike is on the Gospels of Jesus. And it's, again, translated by Stephen Metzl. And it really brought me up to speed on specifically what Jesus had said and how much it's congruent with all the other things I've read. Jesus never talked about the concept of a hell and a place that people would burn eternally in flames. There's no worse way to imagine dying than that. And so he didn't have this control mechanism. He was talking all about how we're all one, that God's within us all, and that we're to be of selfless service to each other. It also created this texture around Jesus where it made him extremely human. It really dove deep into the nature of his mom, Mary, and it's an amazing read. I can't recommend it more highly. diving into it. I was listening to parts again and sharing them with friends that primarily are Christians, and my interpretation of how much synchronicity there is with other works that I've read. I also finally got another nudge to read The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis, most famous for writing the Narnia Chronicles, The Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe. Those have been made in movies, as you know. And C.S. Lewis was also really deep into theology, but in the same type of way that Stephen Mitchell was saying, here's what Jesus actually said. And his book, The Great Divorce, first of all, is really fun to read, and it's really well voice acted by a British kind of Scottish guy. And it really gets you to think about the concept of heaven is very expansive and hell as a concept as really tiny. In The Great Divorce, we discover that hell as a concept, which is a mind prison, is tinier than a pebble on the beach on Earth. And so it was really, really interesting to to dive into that. It's very funny at the same time. He was a great satirist. I've mentioned in the past some of Mark Twain's books. He also dove into the same type of Christian theology, but again, in a satirical way to make you humble and make you realize that it was all about love. And the part of religion, I think, that a lot of people reject, I think rightfully so, is the part which is around division and judgment. And, you're not this religion, and so therefore this is going to happen to you, versus recognizing that we're 99.9% the same genetically. And what Jesus and all of these other theologies were saying at their root, if you really study them, was that God loves us unconditionally, and that we will be fine if we allow love to conquer our own fear and then help each other do that work, not in a pushy way, in a very soft, gentle way. People are on their own path to awakening. And then if we all did that, we will create heaven on earth, what I call in my book, the age of abundance for all. So I've been diving into that. It's been really fun. If you want to join me on it, feel free to. I also have an event coming up for our Austin bookstore, our hometown hero, Book People. I'm doing that with Mark Gober, who has written 7 books, is one of my best friends. And we're doing that on August 23rd at 4 p.m. at Book People. So come join us for that. I'm not sure if that's going to be recorded, but I did release for episode number 72 of the podcast the recording of the speech that I gave alongside Jamie Metzl, who is on episode 18 of this podcast and came out with a new book called The AI 10 Commandments, when we were in Aspen at the Aspen Action Forum, both as Henry Crown Fellows. We were speaking alongside a woman, Shadia, who was moderating on, is AI checkmate for humanity, or is it the technology that just might save us? And that was re-released as episode 72 of the podcast. So you can check that out. It was super fun to flow with him. And we've got, differences. There's texture in it. Jamie is an atheist, but he says he's kind of like a Jewish guy that's leaning a little bit towards Buddhism. So he has a different mode of thinking about things than I do, which is healthy. And he's also very much a geopolitical expert. He served in multiple administrations and is one of the smartest, most amazing guys I know. And also episode 18 with him on this podcast was really, really good. So today I'm really, really honored to have 2 guests in town that are really looking at Austin for an expansion of their nonprofit. It's been going for 40 years. And so I'm going to go into this interview with them now. So I'm really excited to have both of you here, Madeleine and Christine.
Hey,
yeah. And dinner last night with you guys was amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
We really brought together a good group of of people here in Austin to talk about the Foresight Institute. And maybe we just first of all just start with what the Foresight Institute is, because I know it's been going for 40 years, and this is a really important moment for an organization like the Foresight Institute.
Yes. So we were founded in 1986.
And you're the co-founder.
I am. Back at that time, the center of the tech universe was the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. So that's where it was founded. And we could see that science and technology, in particular, our focus at the time was on nanotechnology.
In 1986?
In 1986.
Was
yes.
that when Neil Stephenson's book, The Diamond Age, had already come out?
No, long before.
That was later, right?
Long before.
Yeah.
Neil read our stuff. That's how we got those ideas.
Really?
Yes.
I love that book.
I'm thanked in the book, so yes.
You are thanked in that book?
I am thanked in the book.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that book.
It's a great book.
Have you reread it?
I should reread it every 10 years to be inspired, for sure.
Yeah,
It's a great book.
I mean, it's a really interesting book now for the AI moment.
Indeed.
With
So
the young
visionary.
ladies farmer. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we could see that nanotechnology and other technologies, including AI, were going to be extremely powerful tools for beneficial purposes and potentially could be used negatively as well. So my co-founder, Eric Drexler, wrote a really inspirational book that caught on in the Valley and among tech people around the world, really, called Engines of Creation, which is still inspirational today, 40 years later.
I've never read it.
It's very inspiring. I'll have to send you one. Based on the loads of interest that came out of that, we knew that we had to start some kind of an organization. And this was long before public benefit corporations were envisioned. So nonprofit was the mechanism at the time.
Right.
To help steer this enthusiasm toward moving these technologies forward in a beneficial fashion. And we've done it ever since, starting originally with nanotech and now expanding into 5 different areas.
And you're the board, on the board, but are you chairperson of the board?
You know, what happened was when we brought in our new CEO, Allison Duteman.
Who was at our dinner last night.
She was indeed.
Awesome.
And I had been running this thing since basically the beginning, and I wanted to send a signal of 100% confidence in the new CEO. So rather than stay on the board and be chairman, I said, you know what? I'm going to get off the board. I couldn't imagine a stronger statement that don't come to me, she's the one. And it's been wonderful. The board, we have a wonderful board. Allison is just crushing it, frankly. Things are going super well, which is, of course, why we're here in Austin, is to expand.
Yeah. And Madeleine.
For me, it's a new journey with Foresight. It's something that I think in this topic of things that are also slightly more spiritual, there was a reason for me to join Foresight. It feels very meaningful.
Very Celestine prophecy.
Yeah. And it's fantastic to work in a team. I think Alison is really an exceptional leader. She is very humble. She is very visionary. And she's very clear also with how she sees the future of the technologies that we're working on. It's really lovely to be part of this and to come to Austin and to really imagine even what that future is going to be for Foresight. So joining in the 40th year feels like a big turning point. There's a lot of appetite to do new great things. So.
And Christine, when you set this up a long time ago, like what was the process prior to actually founding it? Like what gave you this idea to do this at that time?
I and my co-founder, Eric Drexler, were both undergraduates at MIT. It was a time of great ferment in molecular biology. They were discovering the molecular machine systems of nature. He, on the other hand, was an engineer coming out of space systems, had a very engineering approach. And he combined those two ideas to the concept of, wait, we could in principle make artificial molecular machine systems out of something other than proteins. They could be much more mechanical in principle. We could use them to do a wide variety of things, including amazing medical things, right? Repairing the body all the way down to the molecular level, for example. And this, at the time, this was in the late 70s. These were extremely visionary ideas.
Yeah.
So we were able to find some support at MIT from some of the more visionary professors, and started a study group there, which is what you do at MIT when you have a big new idea. You have a study group.
Mm-hmm.
And every January, the undergraduates get the entire month off. So you can set up courses and do very creative things. So we spread the ideas there, and we could see they were very powerful ideas.
Mm-hmm.
He did a number of sort of standard academic style journal publications. But then we realized, look, this is going to be very big. We need a book. So he wrote the book, and we knew that this was we felt in our gut that this was going to be a big deal, that the book was going to be very popular among science and technology folks, and that we were going to need some kind of an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And the right place to do that in the mid-'80s was Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved from Boston to Silicon Valley and started the group. And we were right. The book was a big hit among science and technology folks. It was the in book to read.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. And was there like a deep driving kind of life philosophy that was calling you to do this and him to do this? Like, you know, there's a lot of reasons why people move to Silicon Valley. Like when I moved there, I'll tell you the honest truth, it was to basically be in a place where I could raise lots of money and make lots of money. Now, I did have a real strong calling with Core Metrics, and I got to work with people like Arthur Peterson. He was on my board from the beginning, the co-founder of Excel. Peter Fenton was on my board from the beginning. Now he's at Benchmark Capital. And Keith Benjamin was also on my board, who unfortunately, you know, tragically died in a boxing accident. He was the guy that just pushed himself like so hard on everything. He had really become legendary at Robertson Stevens, the investment banking, and was in VC. And he just absolutely believed in me. And so did Arthur and Peter. I mean, I really owe a lot to them. I was a very, very young guy.
When was that?
This was young. So I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. So this is back when I was just 26 years old. And when we watched that TV show, Silicon Valley, like it was so, you guys were just talking with Deborah, my wife. She could barely watch that show because she's like, you were Richard Hendricks and I have lived through all of this with you. And I literally was the guy throwing up in the trash can, you know, because I grew up programming, you know, since I was 7. So I didn't know how to run a company or anything. So I was just reading literally hundreds of management and leadership books, just like trying to stay above water. And fortunately, eventually, you know, started to figure that out more and more. But that's a lifelong journey.
Sure. So I think there was a philosophy there,
Yeah.
which is that I think both of us felt that we had been fortunate enough to be in science and technology at a critical time when it was clear that some very powerful things were going to happen,
Yeah.
and that people who could see that coming had a responsibility
Yeah.
to do what we could to steer them in positive directions.
All right.
For humanity, for the environment. Prior to this, we had both been heavily involved in what was a big movement at the time, which was the space colonization movement, which is, you know, currently all of humanity's and the biosphere's eggs are in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
We saw with the dinosaurs what can happen
All right.
if you let that go on.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the earlier attitudes was, look, we have an obligation to our species and the biosphere in general to spread off the planet so that we are not so vulnerable. So
Never have heard this narrative. I've
You're
never
kidding.
Heard, I'm joking.
It was a-
I'm joking. I'm saying like we're like in this time again. It's
Yes.
like crazy that
Exactly.
we're like back to
here we are.
this, yeah.
Here we are, right. So this general attitude of,
But I did not know that in that
Oh,
time.
yes.
I
Yeah, yeah,
definitely
yeah.
did not know that in that
oh
time.
yeah, it was a big thing in the 70s.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
So we already had this attitude of, if you're fortunate enough to see something important coming,
Mm-hmm.
you have an obligation. You both have an obligation to try to steer things in a positive direction. And I have to tell you, it also has been the most fun thing I have ever done in my life.
Yeah.
The people that you get to work with, and I know you're seeing this now,
Yeah.
when you step up to these challenges, are just the most brilliant, ethical, fun people that you could possibly imagine.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
why would you do something else? There's nothing more fun to do
Yeah.
with your life than these types of things.
Yeah.
So, so it's not like it's been a sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's been a wonderful, fun adventure, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what the core mantra, if you will, of Judaism is?
I'm not sure.
It's tikkun olam. It means to repair the world. And so that's something that is deeply programmed in us to really do everything we can to basically create a better world. And in our religion, we don't believe in the concept of hell. We believe you can create hell on earth. But ultimately, our job is to help create heaven on earth.
I was brought up with that same theory. I was
Yeah.
brought up in the Unitarian Universalist tradition. And I was always taught that we are here to try to build heaven on earth.
Yeah.
And that God is everywhere in everyone. And
Yeah,
that
I
all
agree.
the religions have a lot in common. In fact, they take, in that religion, they take the high school kids around to different faith communities and hear what each one is doing. And you come away realizing, wait, there's so much overlap here, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole point. So it's a kind of an unusual
It's actually really
organization.
cool. Like I'm very familiar with that. And you're actually the first person I've had on the podcast that grew up that way, because I really like how Unitarianism does that.
It's wonderful.
I really think that is the most beautiful thing, because there's just so much synchronicity between the text. So looking back on, Foresight, I'm curious to ask you this question, and then I want to go to you, Madeleine, on your background, because you have a very entrepreneurial background. But what are some of the big moments that stand out to you? Because 40 years is a long time to look back and say, like, oh my gosh, that happened at Foresight. One of the things I did with Josh Baer, who I've really been grieving, he was one of my best friends, a real brother to me, is we co-founded together a nonprofit, and we did it to ultimately help the Austin community, and we've been amazed at like what has happened as a result of it. And so I'm just curious for you, like when you look back and you say, wow, that happened because of Foresight. And I just learned about one little one, and Neil Stephenson was moved enough to write The Diamond Age, which is one of my favorite science fiction books of all time.
Yeah, if you go back to this originating book, The Engines of Creation, it covers a wide variety of topics. It covers not just nanotechnology, but AI, space, longevity, what we called hypertext, which was the term for the future World Wide Web.
Yeah.
And this was in '86, which is long before the internet, right? So it's been wonderful fun to watch each of these come through. Here it is. Here's the internet. Here's the World Wide Web. Here's space transportation with rockets that are reusable and getting space transportation costs down, which will enable space development. Here's AI, which is coming fast. Here is just most recently, super exciting, a designed enzyme where software was used to design this enzyme, which is going in and reversing the aging process within our extracellular matrix. No one expected that type of thing, although if you read Engines of Creation, you knew this type of thing was coming, right? So it's been so delightful to see, boom, boom, here it comes, because we feel like, okay, we were ready for this, right? And now the big debate was always, well, are we going to get nanotechnology first and that will make super chips that will bring AI faster? Or will we get AI first and we'll have design tools to bring nanotech faster, which is coming? We didn't know which one was first.
You're right.
It's looking now like it's definitely going to be AI first. It's going to be design tools that bring nanotechnology faster. What that means is we're going to get both of these very quickly. We're already seeing the early signs that of designed molecular machines are coming as we projected decades ago. So we're not just having a software revolution, it's going to be a physical technology revolution coming very fast right after that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I was at this this prep session with Chris Anderson at TED before he was going to interview Sam Altman, and one of the people in the room is a pretty famous chip designer, and he educated us, and I did not know this at the time, that this was last year, early last year, that because chips are so precise, that AI is actually so well suited to recursively design chips because it's an exact science, and that we were getting to the point where there was so much ability to recursively design chips, and that language was harder because there's so much nuance in language, right? There's not that same level of precision. Now we're seeing the AI models solve pretty complex math problems that have been around for a long time that were theoretically not solvable by us. And we know that, you know, Google through DeepMind has AlphaChip, and they've been recursively designing chips. So I have long theorized that we will have the nanobots going in and repairing like cells and doing all of those types of things, and that's not something I'm afraid of. But some people really, I mean, there's been all types of science fiction stories about that, like these swarms, you know, of like these rogue nanobots that, you know, kill us and all of that type of thing. But it's super exciting to be at the point now where all of this is going to accelerate, and we'll get into that on the podcast for sure. That's really cool. And were there real standout moments where you saw some companies, you know, really born from what people learned at Foresight?
What I tend to do is I focus on the individual innovators.
Yeah.
So some of them are still in school. So I don't always have the luxury to track them between when they finally get around to getting funded. I work at the very earliest stages. So I don't get to watch the entrepreneurial takeoff.
Yeah.
But I know it's been happening.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where you put things out in the world, and there'll be massive influences as a result, and that's such a karmic gift, but a lot of times you don't know them. Like sometimes it's taken me 10 years to discover that a way I helped someone 10 years ago was like really changed the trajectory of
I
their
get
life.
emails saying, oh, you know, I interacted with you in high school and now I'm doing this and that. It's like, oh wow, I don't remember this, but good, I'm so glad.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I would just say for anybody listening to this podcast is reach out to people now that have really impacted you. Because, you know, now that Josh has passed, has crossed over, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have posted how he impacted them from, you know, very, very early on in their career, and how much it changed the whole arc of their career. And don't wait, you know, it's just beautiful to see like that flourishing of so many people sharing.
Yeah. I would say also don't wait on the other end, which is to the young people out there who are considering, you know, do I dare reach out to this famous person? I say, go for it.
Yeah,
what's the worst thing that can happen? Nothing.
Yeah.
Right? The worst thing that can happen is you don't get an answer back.
That's right.
And if you send a well-crafted message with a specific, clear question that only that individual can answer, you might get a wonderful response.
Yeah.
And it can pay off tremendously for you later. So don't hesitate.
Yeah. And the first book I wrote, The Entrepreneur's Essential, is one of the things I tell in that book is when I think Steve Jobs was like 12 years old, and he reached out to I think it was Bill Hewlett, or was it Packard?
One of
But it was
these.
one of them.
Yeah, yeah.
And he reached out to him at age 12, and he picks up the phone. He had to like go in a telephone, book to figure out how to reach him. And he cold calls him, and he's like, Steve Jobs, I'm 12 years old. I'm working on this project at school, and I'm trying to figure out how to wire this transistor, et cetera. Like, maybe you could help me out. And he says to him, like, why don't you just come to my garage tomorrow? And it changed the whole trajectory of his life, and people hearing this may be like, well, you have to actually, in that situation, be a little bit of a jerk to say no. Like, because first of all, you're getting a call from a 12-year-old. That alone is like astonishing. So they had the gumption to call you. And secondly, like, they're really asking for your help. And we're all products of lots of people that have helped us.
Yeah.
I mean, I stand on I'm lifted up by so many giants that have really believed in me from the very beginning.
People often ask, what's the magic of Silicon Valley, and how can we take that magic back to our country? And one of the huge factors is there's a strong ethic of you will help the next generation. In fact, if someone comes to you and asks for a connection, unless you have a reason, like you don't think the person is ethical, assuming this is a normal, ethical person, if you can make that connection, not only do you have an obligation to do so, that's how you gain social status in Silicon Valley. Who can you help? And I've heard there are parts of the world where it works the other way, which is you show your social status by whose project you can block.
Really?
Literally, yes.
That
I won't tell you
Wow.
what country this is, because I don't want to insult anyone. But there are cultures that work that way, right? And
I'm glad I'm not a part of
and
this
so the
culture.
question, if they come to us and say, well, how do we bring Silicon Valley to our country? It's like, well, change your culture first, because it's never going to happen with that culture.
Yeah.
I think that culture at Foresight is just something that is so unique. And I don't know, it seems to map to what is happening here in Austin.
It definitely is.
Everyone is helping each other. And even at the dinner yesterday that came through. And we just actually have been putting through a impact report for the 40 years of Foresight. So you can imagine how complex that is, as you said, to track all these different things. But the stories we're getting are just crazy. So we're working through this to put out a report of all these little details of how Foresight has had this trace in people's lives, or different things that it's had. So we're also measuring different things like companies. And yes, that there are a lot of things coming through where people have met their first angel investor at a Foresight event, or they got further funding from the grant, or just having the fellowship, for example, is a really big signal. So we're seeing these things, but I think it's really that culture of being able to connect with people, and those tiny little things go on in all these hidden ways where it's not so obvious that is part of the magic.
That's very much alive and well in Austin. I talked about that a bit at the dinner last night. One of my favorite books is The Tao of Willie, named after the Tao Te Ching, and it was co-written by Turk Pipkin. He's a great friend. He's an amazing guy. He started something in Austin called the Nobility Project, where he started with his wife, Christy. They started to build high schools in Kenya, in areas where the kids had no high schools, in pretty remote areas. And Deborah and I helped fund the first one. That was the first time we went to Africa, and that was amazing. That was like a time where everybody's pinching our skin, and like, we're in an area where a lot of people haven't even seen skin this color. And it was the only time, I think, in my life where I felt like Angelina Jolie or something, where the kids are just like dancing around us and everything else. It's really, really sweet. But it's amazing, and you'd see like how well these kids are writing and everything else. But getting back to Willie, that was my first concert when I was 4 years old. It was Willie Nelson at the Backyard Barbecue. And he would always say, look, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. We sit down and we talk about all the things we have in common. And that ethos was always part of just, hey, we're here to lift each other up. And, I started programming at age 7, thanks to my mom. And she would drop me off at user group meetings at age 10. And all the people, I was really young. I was the youngest guy there.
Yeah.
And all the people were like helping me. And some of the people there were like these two guys that called themselves the Bitmap Brothers. They went on to be legendary video game makers. And they would like pull me aside and like show me how to do stuff. And I'm so grateful to them. So that's very big part of my heart. But you see that all over Austin. So I'm still trying to recruit you here.
You don't need to recruit us. We
know.
are 100% sold on
You're
Austin.
sold. All right. Good.
100%.
Good. But Madeleine, last night you were telling your entrepreneurial background, which is pretty damn amazing too. So you should talk about that.
Yeah, I think what's coming up for me was just how much it's important to be around people who accept these types of bigger ideas, where I was coming more from, I was studying at UCL and I studied more like language, more, let's say, philosophy of language, philosophy of technology. So I came through that path originally into wanting to learn how to code.
And what is UCL, by the way?
University College London. It's
Okay,
one of the big unis in the UK.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I came from that perspective of reading a lot of philosophy, a lot of German philosophy actually, and coming into a world of wanting to learn coding. Then I went on to study more data science and economics and finance. So I came with this sort of like rebellious spirit of, no, you're trying to teach me a linear thing, but there's such a bigger picture to consider. And I always had that entrepreneurial streak. I think that comes mostly from my father, but I was the outlier in the family for sure. I come from more of a Oxbridge family, so it's quite, this is by the book, whereas I was always thinking beyond the pages somehow. And that always felt a little bit lonely, to be somehow having a care of the bigger thing and wanting to do that. So yeah, it was really a journey for me of thinking through more the consciousness things and how, I mean, you and your co-founder have a background with data and knowledge graphs. And for me, that was my entry point into tech, was thinking about what is this social representation of me happening and how is that being used to predict my future that I don't have agency in. And then this word agency was sticking from me from my courses. So this was sort of like me in my late teens as studying in my undergrad, thinking of these kind of ideas. And I just always thought that I would try to create an alternative, but I didn't have an engineering background. So I was trying to learn that on the side through and through. And now with agentic coding, I have that, which is just fantastic to be able to build things that you have an idea of and understand what all the engineers have been talking about this whole time. Yeah. So that kind of led me into a way of trying to understand how do we follow this more intentional path. And I told you in our first exchange, I wear this necklace.
Yeah.
And for me, it's so the stone in the middle is Larimar, and it's a way to communicate love in everything that you do. So it's a communication stone. So I find it really important to have that center. And I think what I feel aligned with right now with Foresight is existential hope.
Yeah.
Speaks to this in
Yeah,
such
I
a
love
big
this
way.
term,
So we have
existential
to
hope.
unpack this. Yeah. But I came from that more intention, I would say, in this bigger idea of, well, consciousness is so much more. I've been close to Buddhism since I was a teenager. I practice it. I have a little Buddha here.
Oh, cool.
I do meditation where I live with a community every week. So these things for me were all part of what was the technology that we're building. And Foresight has been growing more globally, I would say, over the last 5 or 6 years, potentially, something like that. And so I had different interaction points there and always found that like a really interesting ecosystem. And that was helping in different ways. And essentially, I always wanted to find that ecosystem as an entrepreneur to build in. But it isn't so easy in Europe. That's a different discussion.
Yeah.
Or as a female founder, that's a whole other topic. But
it isn't so easy as a female founder here too. But that is changing, and it needs to change. And you know about chapter 8 of my book.
Which is fantastic chapter. So I've been in this world of decentralized knowledge graphs, agents, building products, trying to find ways that we can have sovereign AI. What does that mean? Thinking of consciousness and representing that. I have many ideas, which I think being connected at Foresight, it just accelerates all the types of ideas. Now I can have agentic agents coding for me. So there's a lot of things that could come from this. And I would say that having that experience of building products, raising money, and all of that is really something that I see in the people in Foresight now. They are not only researchers, but they can also build companies. And it's a conversation we have in Berlin. Is one of the Foresight AI nodes is in Berlin, where I spend most of my time. And the community there is fantastic. And we had a workshop recently on secure sovereign AI. So we flew in people all around the world, and we had experts, we had founders, investors, all the researchers in the node. And from that, some companies have already been coming through.
Yeah.
So you get to see that and be part of that. And I think that's pretty special to have that, and to not try to teach yourself everything, but really to co-learn. And I think that's something for me that would have been maybe an additional benefit. But there was also COVID during my first entrepreneurial experiences, which was another thing.
Oh yeah. Trust me, that was a struggle. That was one where, because all of the companies I started were all in person, and I loved, the energy of being in person and everything else. And we did everything, you're referring earlier to my co-founder for Data.World, Brian Jacob, who was at the dinner last night. And we did everything to keep it interesting. We hired like magicians that were really well trained on doing this over Zoom. It was actually really fun, believe it or not. We did talent shows, for the company, kind of like we called it Owl Talks. It was our version of TED Talks, because it was amazing, like how talented the people were and what they could share. But oh my gosh, it was, I don't want to repeat that again. It was very, very hard. It was very hard. It felt very lonely. My wife and I were going on hikes all the time, so we got in like really good shape. But it was just so, it was tough to do all that just behind a screen. And I didn't know when, if ever, it was going to come back. I remember sending a memo to the team. I say a memo, it was on Slack, but I was like, I think we'll be, out of the office for a week or two. I was like, no, it's a long time.
Yes.
That was really tough.
There was a silver lining for Foresight from COVID, which was that you remember those scary early days, and we were all stuck at home. And we all know that, Zoom was fairly new. Many people had not yet learned how to do video conferencing, but we were all immediately forced to learn very fast how to do it. And Allison, who was running Foresight, and it was pretty new to the job at that point, decided that she would do a Zoom call with everyone every day, because everyone was stuck at home. It was a scary time. Everyone was lonely. And so she just was on there every day building community. And that exploded our community from, mostly US based, largely California based, to suddenly global.
Yeah.
Just like instantly. So it was, it was a brilliant move. Here you have huge numbers of very smart people stuck at home, desperate for connection about and wanting to talk about important topics. And she walked right in and created it instantaneously.
Yeah. Well, and that says something about her drive and and her just knowing how important that connection was.
It's a very visionary thing to do. Just say, all right, we're going to pivot 180 degrees. We're going to use this new tool, and we're going to build community instantly all over the world. And it worked. It was great.
Yeah, that's cool.
I would say I'm super pro distributed working, and that comes with a lot of remote. I think it's such a nice way to be able to connect your ideas more fluidly with people. So it just means that you can really invite more people to the conversation. You can manage your data. You can collect more data because you're not just writing on a whiteboard somewhere where it gets lost in an office or something, but you can really create more accessibility. You can create more collaboration with different people. So I think it's fantastic. And especially in this world of really wanting to have these digital minds or some representation of us, I think in companies, the companies that did that from COVID and were ready to go into this agentic era, especially scientists, and we had a big conversation about that in London recently, I think that was a pathway for people to be ready for this agentic age that we're entering. And if you were too in person, you didn't have the right setups for that, I think you were going to have to then reorganize for it culturally, and especially with the context of Foresight, where we have now this sort of distributed, the AI nodes are very distributed in the concept of it. That's about open source, open collaboration. And so you need to go in this direction. That's something I deeply believe in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, there were definitely some pros. I mean, we ended up hiring people over 20 states. And there's no way I would have thought of doing that prior to COVID. Because I was really all about us being in person, just based on having done that successfully at Bizarre Voice and Core Metrics and creating big companies. And we were able to hire like real specialists, like really niche,
world
skills.
class people.
World-class,
That's how you can you can get world class people if you're willing to hire remote.
Yeah. So we were definitely able to do that, and there's a lot of businesses where that won't work because it really, they're creating a physical product. Like I actually started this morning visiting a company here in Austin that makes the only jet engines in all of Texas, and that's a very physical. So we're going into all the rooms where they're building it. And I was like, oh my gosh, my dad would have absolutely loved this company, because my dad was a physical product entrepreneur. He invented the world's first halogen fishing light. Wow. That was a real disruptive innovation when he invented it, because fishing lights were around this big around, and he invented one that was this big and it was 3 times brighter and didn't catch boats on fire. And so he was a bit of a celebrity in those circles. And he didn't understand me growing up, because all the things I was building were virtual. Yeah. And he's like, I can't touch or feel anything you're building. I'm like, Dad, don't worry, this is gonna turn out well. And he later on told me, yes, it did. But these guys are like highly in the physical system. Yeah. And the CEO is talking about how it really is important, like, to get people to move there, to be with engineers, et cetera, that are building the product. But yeah, if you're in the virtual world, it has benefits. But I think being in the time of COVID where we couldn't get people together at all, and you didn't feel like it was safe, versus you're virtual and you can still get together occasionally and kind of have this connection. I mean, that's one of the reasons I do the podcast this way, is it is different. Like, this is different level of connection than if we were over Zoom.
We have to do these things. We're still primates. We have to form a bond, you have to meet in person. Yeah. It's just, we're wired for it. Yeah. And once you form the bond, now you and I will communicate online and it will be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But it does stray where you need to recommune in person.
I think again, once a year is really helpful.
Yeah.
And that's such a big part of Foresight, I think, is the fact that there are the vision weekends, there are workshops, now there's the AI nodes. People do get to meet, but it's becoming increasingly global, where almost that trust in the community can somehow be passed over in a way, or if you say, I'm part of Foresight community, I think that carries something, and people trust, therefore, by proxy, other people in that, as innovators, as thinkers, and with this kind of ethical undertone of how they're thinking about it. And I think that's something with this concept. So the AI nodes with Foresight, it's really new. It's the first time Foresight has had physical place for people to convene beyond the events. And there's a different culture, I think, forming in each place in that. In Berlin, sometimes we have DJs there, and some of us are there till like 1 a.m. just coding and sharing how we're coding. And it's really nice that there's a very, I would say, vibrant and youthful energy, and it's such a mix of people. Some people who have decades of experience, some people who are fresh out of school or even still in school mixing. And I think those are the kind of in-person relationships that are one-on-one, but are also about community. And so I think a lot of what we go into when we want to feel that we're building these existentially hopeful futures is having that connection to something that is beyond yourself. For me personally, I like to think that I live in communities. I'm part of like regenerative communities in Europe. I'm part of the AI node space in Berlin. It feels like a little home. I have my protein and everything in a little cupboard in the Berlin AI node. So you can go there and it's an extension of home. And I think the more that we can make people feel like that's a space that is an alternative. One of our colleagues, Bradley in Berlin, he says the nodes are a third space. And it's really something that feels not like an incubator, nothing that's too done before, but it's emerging, and it's a space where people can feel like their ideas can just come up and you can share them, and you can really feel like part of that. So I think part of the vision that Alison has had for these AI nodes to go global is that being connected to the broader network, where some of the nodes will be run and operated by Foresight.
Right.
Some of them are even extended community. And this is this beautiful vision of if the values, if the vision of why we're supporting this frontier science and technology, if you believe in that and if you're connected to that, you can join the network. So we've had interest in London, in South Africa, in China, in so many places to have nodes come up and be part of this network. And I think it's fantastic. We're seeing so much innovation and different approaches
I
to
think that has
all these topics because of it.
It has incredible promise. I mean, that's very much like a TEDx strategy in so many ways.
Yes.
And the beautiful thing about TEDx is that all those events, which are supposed to follow a certain formula, then feed back into the best of, feeds back into TED.com and all the videos that they share.
Yeah.
And then that also can feed into what speakers are at the big TED event.
Yeah.
But the TEDx community has been just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. I sometimes call it the TEDx nodes, or the Nodex.
That's a great strategy. That's going to do really well.
And I think now we're inspiring other people to do that. There's actually a place on the Foresight website where you can see a form to put in your node. If you have people and you have already some funding or a space or a concept, then you can apply to join the Foresight Node Network. So it's very open, and it's not that we need to replicate each node exactly the same around the world. I think what's beautiful about this trip in Austin is seeing there are already so many communities doing similar things, and we're trying to find where we fit in and your help to do that. And the compute is really, I think, a part we should talk about that is unique to the nodes. And I'd love actually to know your perspectives on this. I think it's a lot of the initiative of Alison. It fits a lot with a lot of the research, but I'm really curious how you see that as an evolution of Foresight.
So the vision of the AI nodes needing to have their own on-site sovereign compute, and by that we mean heavy-duty AI on-site, has to do with our deep belief in decentralization, the spreading out of power, for a couple reasons. One is that we feel that this is the way to get the broadest benefits for the broadest number of people. And the other side is we also think that this is the way to minimize risks. The risk that comes from centralization of power, which is certainly how things were going for a while there in the early days of AI. It looked like there might be only two players.
Right.
And to us, this does not seem like the way to go. Now, since then, in the last couple of years, there's been the explosion of the open weight models.
Right.
They are very close to state of the art at this point. But there's constraints on hardware. Hardware can be expensive. So we've committed in our AI nodes to providing the people who work there with on-site compute that is controlled by them, by the node itself, so that we know that it will be affordable. We know that the data will be secure. We know that it will continue to be available because it's unclear whether scientists will have access to the best.
Right.
As competition for compute increases, prices may go skyrocketing. We don't know. Right now, they're kind of subsidized, right? So is that going to go on forever? Maybe not. And will scientists be able to afford compute? So we're going to make sure that the ones that we interact with at our nodes can afford it and can do it right there, and they know the data's secure. They know this is going to be available for years to come.
And what you're trying to catalyze there with this exponential curve we're in with AI and quantum computing and robotics and brain-computer interfaces, I call about in the book, I call that the superfecta, is really that all about creating novel science? Or how would you describe that for the scientists themselves? You're looking at them creating kind of breakthroughs through these nodes.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that AI is going to be central to science going forward, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely clear.
Yeah.
We're already seeing how it's going to play into longevity biotech, which is one of our big interest areas. I think it will be playing a key role in all of the science areas. So it's just essential to provide that to your scientists. If you want advances, it's going to be, table stakes. It's required.
Yeah.
The bare minimum is giving state-of-the-art compute to your scientists.
One of the things I discuss in the book, and we talked about this a little bit last night at dinner, and it's in the chapter 4 of the book where I'm talking about climate change and energy. It seems to me like we're in a short-term constraint scenario right now, that we are going to create nearly unlimited energy from the sun. And this state is really interesting on this front. We had necessity is the mother of invention, and we had this event shortly after the pandemic. It was actually during the later parts of it where I called it the ice apocalypse. And we had so much rain come and then a freeze, and it froze on the power lines and froze the trees. It was really kind of a little bit dark and scary because you could hear the trees dying. Like I would sit out on the balcony of this house and you would hear trees just literally dying. And it hit power lines and all this stuff. And because Texas, we do things so independently, we don't share power with any other states, and no states share power with us. So we're on our little island. But it has led to a massive number of solar starts here. And it looks like we'll be the state maybe that leads the solar wave the most. And you can see it. I mean, you've been at this for a long time. And I've been programming since I was a kid. I've been studying these charts for a long time. You can see the price of solar just going down so fast, and you can see the capability going up so quickly. And so it's pretty clear to me that we're going to figure out how to decode the energy of the sun. And the amazing thing to contemplate with that is just less than an hour of the sun's rays that hit the earth in a single day would power the entire world's energy needs for over a year. Now we have the chip constraint, but if you have unlimited energy, or you have robots like mining all the rare earth things that we need to create the chips and finding new materials through novel science of maybe ubiquitous material. When Peter Diamandis wrote his book Abundance, he covered the story of aluminum, and I did not know the story of aluminum, but apparently in the medieval days, the kings and queens would serve the most distinguished guest using aluminum utensils. And then the second most would eat with gold utensils, and the third most would eat with silver. And it was because we didn't know how to get aluminum cheaply. It was like extremely rare to be able to use aluminum. And now it's like a material we don't think much about. And so we need to have the material science breakthrough to create, an unlimited number of these chips, and then recursively constantly improve them. And then the energy breakthrough where we can power them all over the world. And these nodes could literally just be everywhere.
AI should be great on material science.
Yes.
We should see amazing things from that.
Exactly.
I really look forward to that.
Yeah.
I mean, material science sounds like a boring field, but what it produces is not boring.
No, it's absolutely a super exciting field. I mean, my dad would have loved that field. He was all about material science, and everybody's got a thing that lights them up. And for me, it was just always things in the virtual world. But yeah, I think, so you kind of agree with that thesis that we're going to get to that point?
Oh yeah.
Because you both read my whole book.
Sure.
Which it's unusual I'm having someone on the podcast where they've already read the book, because the book's pretty new.
Right.
So when you got to that chapter, what did you think about that?
I think abundance is coming. I mean, I like to take a historical perspective, right? If you think about how we live today, I mean, obviously we live in a world of abundance compared to previous times.
Big time, yeah.
Tremendous abundance. It's not evenly distributed around the world, but it's huge abundance already. This is just going to continue. I mean, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they'll look back now and they'll be like, wow, I mean, look how far we've come. I think it's going to be stunning.
It's hard for me to imagine a year right now.
It is. It is hard to imagine.
30 years is
It's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
But, I mean, your kids are going to live to see just incredible changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be almost unimaginable to us, I think. So, and not just in physical wealth, but in unimaginable health by our standards, right? I think we'll see extensions in healthy human lifespan, maybe substantial ones. There's no physical law that says we can't be extremely healthy for a very long time. It's a complex system.
Yeah.
It's a huge, complex challenge, but there's no reason why, especially with AI, we can't tackle this challenge.
As you know from the book, I'm mostly very optimistic that we're going to make it, but it's it feels like the next few years are going to be the most challenging in terms of us making it to the other side of this. And I mentioned last night at dinner that I'm actually more optimistic now than I was when I started writing the book, because the model leaders, they're all calling for some type of global collaboration around this. The president of China is calling for global collaboration around this. You've got Pope Leo come out with the first encyclical calling for global collaboration around this. And that to me feels different. Maybe it's because I was a kid in the 1970s, and so I wasn't remembering the whole, let's go to other planets, et cetera. But does that feel different to you? I mean, you've been at this for a long time, Christine. Like when you look at 40 years of Foresight,
I think people are realizing that this is a huge, huge technological revolution, that we have tremendous opportunities, we have some substantial risks. So there's a lot of agreement on that. So it's encouraging. And now we just have to follow through. We have to implement. They have these calls. Great. Okay, now we have to do it. So that will be the challenge.
What do you think is on the other side of us making it? Like, do you think it's because one of the things you talked about is like incredible kind of physical wealth, et cetera. But I'm curious if you kind of as if someone that's a futurist, I love your opinion on this too, Madeleine, like, what do you think is on the other side of, like, we now have unlimited energy, nearly unlimited. The sun's going to last another billion years. Our youngest child Yuzu always reminds me, like, nothing's unlimited. There's still a limit to it. I'm like, yes, I get it, but we're talking about practically unlimited. And what do you think is on the other side of that?
In terms of positive things, I think one thing that's always driven Foresight is true environmental restoration. I think we can undo all of the damage we've done to this planet. We can get rid of all pollution. We can get it to zero. The only type of pollution that the laws of physics say we can't get rid of is a certain amount of heat. So we do need to deal with heat dissipation issues. That will never change. That's a thermodynamic thing. But in terms of chemical pollution, we can get that down to nothing if we choose to do so. We can go around and clean up everything, restore native plants if we choose. I mean, we can make the Earth a garden planet of beauty that we can only dream of right now. And I think we will.
I think
this will happen.
Yeah.
I think it's something we all want, right? Humans want a beautiful, clean environment. That's we've seen in the past that if you want to have environmental restoration, that comes with wealth. It does not come with poverty. You know, the way forward to a beautiful environment, a clean environment, is through wealth building. It's wealthy people who have the resources to clean up the environment. They have the luxury of saying, we want to have environmental restoration. So I think that will happen. So we already talked about extreme health. So extreme health of the environment, extreme health of humanity. I think it will be a joyful thing, and this is a project you've already started, to spread education all around the world, to spread high standards of living all around the world. These are totally doable things, right? We've already begun, and with more resources, we can do them faster. It's a beautiful picture, and I think I see no reason why it can't happen. We do have to get through these next few years. That'll be the tricky thing, but I think there's if we focus on that, I think there's no reason to think it can't happen. I think painting only doomish scenarios, if that's all you do, is not helpful. Because as human beings, what we do, our brains are set up to minimize the difference between what we expect and what happens. So if we insist on only picturing negative scenarios, we automatically steer things in that direction because that's what we expect. This is how our brains work. So it is a disservice to only present negative scenarios. I think it can be helpful to present a negative scenario if you think it's possible. By all means, present it. We need to hear it. But you have an obligation. I think you really have an obligation to say, and here is an alternative scenario. We have a choice. We have to pick one and then implement it. If all you do is present doom scenarios, that is, I think, actually not helping.
I'll give you an example of one which was triggering to me. So, you know, I was at, this was a couple of years ago, and this guy, Elijah Yudkowsky, have you heard of Elijah Yudkowsky?
I know him well.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Okay. And, you know, Tristan Harris is a friend of mine. I like Tristan. I love Jason Karp. Jason Karp's like a brother to me. He was on episode 3 of this podcast, and he has really educated me, and he educated people on that episode. There are 10,000 toxins in our food that are illegal in Europe and in Canada. And he's been the guy, like, you know, that went viral for holding up the Fruit Loops. I don't know if you remember that moment that he was like, these Fruit Loops, you know, are, you know, chemical dye in America, and that's what makes them bright. And these in Canada, you know, are vegetable, you know, natural dye. And these we know, you know, cause issues. And Kellogg's makes the same ones in America for 10 cents more. They ship it to Canada, the better ingredients, and they are poison arrowheads, et cetera. And so, you know, but he's got like really good points on this. Like, these are really big things, and the thing that allows capitalism to go super fast. leads to us having this reverse problem that Europe has. Europe can go too slow, but this reverse problem of Europe is all about, you need to prove to me that this is not going to hurt people to put it in food. We're like, put it in the food and then prove it later. And that's what led to the situation. But this guy, Elijah Yudkowsky at TED, he's essentially giving this talk that if we build this, we're all going to die. And then he comes out with a book where the title is, If We Build It, We Will All Die. And, I come out with a book called Love Conquers Fear. I'm very happy that it's USA Today bestseller now. But if I reversed the title and said Fear Conquers Love, it would sell more books because of the way our brains are wired. And of course, his pretty quickly became a New York Times bestseller. I'm just curious, like, how you think about that.
Well, interesting you should ask. We go way back with Eliezer Yudkowsky to before, when he was a little more optimistic. And so he, as you say, he has this particular view. It's sincerely held. There's no question of that.
Yeah.
So what we did at Foresight is we said, well, all right, let's have a little debate between Eliezer Yudkowsky and one of our key software people, Mark Miller, and I was the moderator. So it's a very long thing. You can find it on YouTube, but
we'll put it in the show notes, actually.
Okay. Okay. So the central thing was what Eliezer Yudkowsky is proposing is a pause in development while we work on the problem. Okay, so Mark kept on him saying, and he wouldn't give up until he finally got an answer saying, okay, you want to pause? Yeah, okay. What is going to happen during the pause that is going to lead to a better outcome? What do we, like, are you planning is this pause forever? No, he said no. Okay, so it's a defined pause. What is going to get better in this period so that things go better at the end of the pause? And it turns out that what Eliezer is proposing, as far as he was very clear actually about it, is so we will genetically engineer humans to be more intelligent and they will fix the problem. That's the answer that he has.
So it's a transhumanism kind of?
Well, I don't know whether he would use that term or not, but that is his proposal.
That's interesting. I've never heard him say that. Yeah.
There's a reason why he doesn't say it, because it doesn't sound like a very good idea.
Yeah.
It seems pretty peculiar, actually.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound very likely to work.
Right. Yeah. I don't even know.
No, it does not seem likely to work. So that's why, and he's not the only one who has this idea. That's why these folks don't say it, because it doesn't make much sense, frankly. Right. So this call for a pause, if that's what they're suggesting, is not really that helpful. There may be other things we could do possibly during a pause. And I think there probably are other folks who have other ideas for why they're calling for a pause. But at least in that particular case, I personally do not find that very persuasive.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even know that that's the argument. I just finished a book a couple of weeks ago called Pure Human. It's by this guy, Greg Braden. And it was very cautionary on transhumanism. I've invited him on the podcast. We'll see if he ultimately comes on the podcast. But I think it's a fascinating book. And it's about beauty and magnificence of just what we are, the complexity of what we are. And so it's a great science book. But one of the things that is true is that I am already transhuman. This is a negative 6.5 eye and this negative 6 eye. And I'm wearing contacts and I've got better in 20/20 vision. So there's some amount of like transhumanism you want, but I agree with Greg that there are kind of frontiers we're going to have to cross over here as we go through this exponential curve to say, how robotic do we want to become? And what are we going to allow to happen to the brain? And, the most difficult part of the superfecta for me is brain-computer interfaces. Like I'm completely with, Elon Musk on that I think we will cure blindness. These are just input mechanisms. I think that will happen. I am completely on like quadriplegics. They need to have their mobility back and everything else. And that's a new lease on life for them. And I also think brain-computer interfaces are going to help us decode like whatever this reality is more and more. And that'll be something that we'll grapple with. And I don't think you've read The Lattice yet, right?
Not yet.
Yeah, so The Lattice is my science fiction novella. It's only 35 pages long, and I just gave it to you for the first time last night. So you haven't.
I think Allison
had a
took it
chance.
away, but okay.
She took it away.
I think
Okay.
she took it.
Well,
yeah.
I'll give you a copy here, but I do talk about in The Lattice that Earth is a healed jewel by 2050. But the only way we make it is the brain-computer interfaces get to a point of resolution where they're able to see what's happening in our mind, where we prove that our actual reality is one where spirituality and science are both true, and that we see a repeating pattern between people like the Dalai Lama, people that are having a psychedelic journey, people that are deep meditators, that they're seeing the same unification of things. And the lattice is another word for consciousness, that, consciousness being this fundamental property. But it's, yeah, I mean, it's a really fascinating time, because it's like, where are we going to go with the lines? How are we going to societally kind of muddle through, like, where we go with upgrading ourselves and what's too much, I mean, actually a diamond age goes into this a lot. And in the diamond age, there's people that go like way into like hyper transhumanism and like upgrade themselves to have like superhuman arms and superhuman kind of parts. So
I'm sure there will be people who want to do that.
I can't remember what year in Wired magazine it was where the first guy inserted a computer chip, but I think that was in like the 90s, or like inserted the computer chip in their body.
Yeah, I met a young man who had inserted a magnet in his finger so that he could sense magnetic fields.
Yeah, it's coming. It's going to be really interesting, and people will need to decide what level of sovereignty they want to have over their own body as it is, and what level they want to solve things. And probably the most provocative TED Talk this year, the one that got the most kind of debate, was, I can't remember the woman's name, but she was a Peter Thiel fellow, has a new company. I'll put a link to this. I know that this TED Talk is live now, but it was basically about genetically engineering children, babies. And I've long believed that the gateway into that is something like you have a genetic disease that runs in the family. And I think most people would say, yes, if I can guarantee that my child is not going to be succumb to that genetic disease, yes, I would do that. And that's then a gateway to people saying, oh, and by the way, I want their eyes to be blue, or whatever it is.
Taller.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Higher IQ.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a long list.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Madeleine, I want to bring you into this. Like, what do you think is on the other side of this, this crazy, amazing curve that we're on right now?
In an age of abundance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you said what is this opposite of scarcity, then for me, what was coming up is thinking about how much that breaks down the current laws of economics, and just really thinking about so much of the things that we've built our society on, particularly now in the West, has been about scarcity, supply, demand, and all of these dynamics really rooted into so many aspects of life. That when you change that, you start to think about what would be another anchor point of thinking about economics. And that's something I think has been a debate for a very long time. But when you take out the fact that energy would be not scarce, or you take out these things, I think it really draws us to ask these questions, like questions you're asking in the book about the fundamental choices that we're making and the goals that we're setting. So for me, it comes a lot back to this overlap with AI, our brains, and these choices we're making then about our body and these things. It's about identity. And there's something that there's a branch, a really interesting branch of economics called identity economics. And it's a bit around behavioral economics and these types of things. But that, I think, is a conversation that needs to be had in the context of science and technology, is what, and there are some people writing about this, about what is going to change now. We're going to break scarcity in economics. There's a few interesting papers coming out about that. I think it's really something that will be at the center, because you always need some kind of economic laws to happen in these exchanges. So I would like to see a bit more of those conversations coming up, and I think it's something that people are aware of in Foresight, that it's a lot of branches of those types of topics going on as well. And really thinking about, okay, so if I'm going to now represent myself
Right.
in my identity in an age of abundance as a machine that is maybe sovereign or not sovereign, what does that really actually say about choices and how it's going to be made, and how resources will be allocated? So that's kind of where my mind goes, is thinking that it's no longer going to be immediately me sitting there making a choice. It's somehow going to be at the level of the representation of me, whether that is from a machine or from something that is brain interface, or, I mean, could go further than that. But yeah, that for me is where my head is going, is what does that future look like in 50, 100 years from now, where we've totally broken everything we knew about economics with scarcity, and how do we now go in this future of what these AI systems need to be to securely represent your intention in that, and your choice of your identity, and how can we even maybe have new types of recommendations? Because I think what we're doing is we are so much programmed, and we are algorithmic representations of different things in our lives, and somehow we get persuaded into different things, and we get pushed in different directions or influenced. And in the future, we need to think about what are these recommendation systems going to look like for our digital representations of ourselves. So that's a bit where my mind keeps going back to, is like, that is a paradigm that is, and is a little bit related to fiduciary AI and some of the topics from Foresight as well. Where is it going when we really represent ourselves? And yeah, so that's that's my mind. I'm trying to map back from 100, 200 years from now. What are the thoughts we need to be going through right now?
Yeah, I mean, part of my thesis is that there's a part of us that'll go back to more communal living.
Yeah.
Like, I know you study Buddhism or practice Buddhism. Bhutan, as you know, is one of the case studies, as I call the new models for humanity in the book. And, their entire GDP is 3 weeks of coffee in the United States. And they don't measure themselves that way. They measure themselves on gross national happiness. We have so much wealth in the country versus any other country on earth. We have the highest GDP per person. But yet Americans live shorter lives than the Bhutanese. We have lots of rise in depression and loneliness in a time where we're all like hyper connected. And you have to ask yourself, like, why? And it's because they have a different level, I think, of programming when they're raised. Because Buddhism is all about inner contentment. It's about the kingdom of God is found within, whatever someone thinks that is. And, I mentioned on this podcast many times that Stoicism is a great path too. Like, you could be a Stoic and gain sovereignty over your thoughts and your mind and be fine. You don't have to believe in God to go there. And I'm just kind of curious, like, for you guys, what do you believe this reality is that we're actually in? Is it so? I mean, I think this is the big question. One of the things I mentioned last night that really stood out to me. I know I'm talking a lot this episode about TED, but this was a moment that really stood out to me. And it's probably because I just wrote an article on Sunday, which is called Love, Fear, and the Connected Cosmos. People can find that on Substack or LinkedIn. But, you know, we've been grappling with what is the nature of reality ever since we've invented language, and probably even before language. And Demis Hassabis was interviewed by Chris Anderson a couple of years ago, and Chris was really pressing him and saying, why are you doing this? Like, what do you really want to learn? Like, what is it what's the big reveal for you with AI that's really driving you? And he's like, I want to understand the resolution of the universe at the Planck scale. And that's named after, or the Planck scale, named after Max Planck. He was one of the patriarchs of quantum physics. And Max Planck himself, as he discovered quantum physics, he started to become much more spiritual. And Albert Einstein was really shaken to the core by quantum entanglement. He is like, what is going on here? He called it spooky action at a distance. Like, and we know now that the article that I was writing this weekend is, we know now in the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics that the universe does not have this hidden local variable that Einstein was looking for, because he was trying to say that there's no way the universe is non-local, because that would really shatter the paradigm of the general theory of relativity. And so we now know that physics has proven, quantum physics in particular, that quantum entanglement is not only real, quantum computing doesn't work without it, but that it is completely non-local in terms of the way it works, which is really very hard to even grapple with. So we live in a non-local universe, and it points you back to ancient spirituality, because the ancient mystics somehow knew about the connected nature of things. So I'm just curious where you guys sit on this big philosophical question, because I think it's this lifetime where we start to decode much more of whatever quantum physics teaches us about the nature of reality, and it's driving people like Demis. And he was up late at night saying, I'm up late, like deeply pondering this. This was just a few months ago, and Elon Musk, jumped in. He's like, I'm pondering the same thing. This was the exchange they had on X, and I was like, yep, that's still his driver, and there's a deep part of me where it's this love for humanity and wanting humanity to make it. But of course, I also am very curious about whatever this reality is.
I would say I think everybody connected in Foresight, in the team or in the community, they have their own deep musings around these things. And it's something that shows up in how we think about definitely some of the AI safety grants and things like that. But I would say there's an awareness for many different people that there's something here to explore. And that said, there's always this nice tie between science and spirituality. And I would just then speak on my own personal take on these types of topics. I came to a term for myself called open happiness through this journey of trying to figure out how could I want a sovereign AI system that represents me, that is good and has this recommendation of the best possible things in the world for me. And I think it's a new type of human right that's emerging, that when you get born into this digital existence now, you could have the best possible education right there for you. You could have the best possible longevity tactics, things that are affordable, let's say, that you could do, how to eat, how to train, all those types of things. So it's possible to have that and to represent yourself now in this way. And I think there's so many, I've traveled and been across so many different cultures. I think the Scandinavians have a beautiful concept of happiness in general. It's very, very collaborative, very, very sovereign as well. So there's a lot of things to take from that. But yeah, personally for me, open happiness is like a phrase that I took and resonates with existential hope. And that's why I feel really deeply connected to that. where it bridges the fact that maybe I am having a practical experience where, I'm here, there's things to do in this, whatever that reality is, I can act. And we had a discussion a couple of days ago in my Buddhist meditation center about meditation and ethics being parallel to one another, that you need to have an action as well as the spiritual part. So that is a way that I like to think about this. I'm very curious, very fascinated by anything to do with quantum physics, this whole realm of space-time, anything that's in this side. And I'm really interested in a lot of work by neuroscientists that are also studying this, to try to bring it to that. How can we prove this? Because maybe there is something there that could be proven, and it's just an evolution of science. And how do we then separate what is maybe false information from what is really able to help people? But I feel very connected to accepting that there's something here to think about. I think that the gut is also a really important part in intelligence and my reality of my interaction. A microbiome, I try to eat well especially for that. So I would say I'm trying to have a very holistic, integrated thing, and ultimately you have a choice of how you act in that conceptual experience of reality as well. And I think acting in ways by having a more positive, loving, hopeful experience is one of the better things you can do.
Yeah, I love it. And the second most neurons are in your gut, and so thinking with your gut is a very real thing.
Yeah.
How about you, Christine? You grew up in the Unitarian tradition.
I did, and I think that might be why I've never really seen a conflict between science and, whether you want to call it spirituality or values or however you want to think about it. There's only one reality, right? It's all intertwined, and it's just different ways of thinking about things. You can think about it from a brain science perspective. You can think about it from a psychology perspective, an ethics perspective, a morality perspective, a spirituality perspective, a religion perspective. I don't see these as all deeply separate things. It's more like these are just all different viewpoints into what we're all trying to do here.
Yeah.
It seems like whether you come at it from a science perspective or from a religious or spiritual perspective, there are some things we know that are good for human beings, right? And it's all through your book, right? Love, okay?
Yep.
The oneness of experience that some people get it through psychedelics. I've felt it through meditation. Some people get it through prayer or through traditional religion. But there's that oneness, right? So there's love, there's the oneness. These are fundamental to human experience, and we know what is good for human beings, right? We know what feels good to human beings. We know that generosity and altruism feel good.
Right.
And those are not like debated. These are not things people argue about. These are fundamental to humans. So for me, it's clear what to do, right? Let's implement these things. So that's what we do. We do it in our personal lives. We do it in our professional lives at Foresight. How do we bring benefits to other human beings, to the biosphere? So to me, like, there's no big conflict. It's more like we're all on this great adventure. And some of us are extremely fortunate, and I know you're one, and you are one. I feel that I'm one. We get to do this all the time. We have had very fortunate lives. We have enough resources to do this, so we get to do this, and it is a joyful adventure that we are doing together now. Now it sounds like we will be doing this in Austin as well.
Yeah, I'm
super
so excited
exciting.
about that.
Yeah. So I just don't see a big conflict. It's more like some folks have kind of figured out, okay, here's what we should all do. Let's work together. Let's try to make the world a better place for everyone. Let's try to heal the environment. Let's try to make everyone healthy. And then that's what we're on this great adventure. It's a tremendously fun thing. Once you start this pathway, it's like, why would you do anything else?
I agree.
It is so fun.
Yep.
You know, it's not like there's a downside.
Right.
It's all upside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, but it's I completely agree. Happiness is one of these things which if you ask like 50 people what makes you happy, they would have very different answers. And true lasting happiness is inner communion. However you want to describe that. It's realizing the program's running in your mind. And let's say that, we didn't have this fortunate lives and we had some horrible trauma as a child. You could run that program for your entire life.
People do all the time.
Yeah.
Most people do.
Yeah.
That's why those of us who have been more fortunate need to step up and try to heal whatever is going on out there and try to bring more folks into
I completely
our situation.
agree. I mean that's why I wrote the book, is to be a part of that, and I know that's why you started Foresight. So I totally agree with that, but I also want to really make the point that a lot of the most spiritual people I've ever met are some of the least wealthy people I've ever met. Like, when I went to Bhutan, like there was a woman crying at the end of it that was with us, a mother beautiful family there. And she was like, I just want to bring some of this happiness with me to America. And we all felt it. Like, we all really felt what she meant by that. And so there is a certain level here. It's very interesting to think about things in balance. Like America is like a go fast, et cetera. And like, I'm a part of that. I mean, I was raised here, we picked ourselves up by our bootstraps, we're gonna create the future, et cetera. There is a downside to that in terms of just total maximization. And the downside is that we're programmed to believe that, the dream car that we had on our wall, oh, well, now we've arrived. And I got the dream car. I had I had a Lamborghini on my wall, and I got the Lamborghini. I don't have it anymore. I had it for like 12 years. And it was very ephemeral. It was like cool for a moment, and the happiest I've ever been in my entire life is actually now. And it's because I meditate almost every day. And I have that regular inner communion. And because I've been reading so many books on spirituality, of all different types, both ancient and modern, I'm able to at least see in the moment now more and more when programs are entering into the mind, and I can be like, I understand why you're here. I love you, but no, it's not entering.
There's nothing wrong with wealth creation. Wealth creation is
totally
wonderful, as you
I
know.
agree.
It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I think the problem comes when it becomes either your identity or this is how you get your status.
Yes. And if it feels like your net worth, if it's like that's your worth as a person.
It drives me crazy the way the press says so-and-so is worth X dollars.
Right.
It's like, not that they have it, that's they as an individual are worth that, and other people are worth less dollars. It's a terrible expression. I suggest we get rid of it in English. Just never use that as abandoned now.
Yeah.
Because
it's actually Byron Reese, who was at the dinner last night. It was on episode 12 of this podcast where he's like, you realize that term. And it really hit me. And, I've learned a lot from him and our friendship. You can learn a tremendous amount from a friend if you're open to learning. And it was such an important lesson. So I've tried to banish that word from
Right.
my vocabulary.
We don't use that. No,
Yeah.
we would never use, I try never to say that.
Yeah.
Well, I think many people who've been fortunate in their lives, and you know many of them here in Austin, and we certainly know them all over the world, where, and it's perfectly normal. When you're a young person, you have that drive to succeed in life. It's normal. And if you're lucky and work hard, sometimes you gain that success, get the Lamborghini, hooray, great, enjoy it. But then if you're even luckier, there's another stage when you realize, oh, wait, this is something that I can do wonderful things with for the world. This doesn't have to be about me.
Right.
And then you deploy it in there are so many ways, right?
Yeah.
You did schools in Africa. That's a great way. You know, we do things at Foresight. There's so many ways that you can do those deployments. And those people are the most fortunate people. And now you're one of those.
Yeah, I look at money now as energy, and the way you use energy matters a lot.
Yeah.
So if you use the energy to buy some crazy yacht and, you know, just show it off all that's one form of using energy. If you use the energy to say, hey, we could really help humanity here, and that's a whole different form of using energy. And you know, it's fine to, I don't want to make it sound like it's not fine to have some material items. I'd be a hypocrite to say that. But you know, the person that I fix my values, the one that I really look up to in terms of I want to be more like them, is Warren Buffett. He's living in the same house he's been living in for over 50 years. You know, he's like a dolphin in the water as he swims around at the Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting. The last sentence he wrote in the chairman's letter when he turned over the reins as CEO. Do you know what the last sentence was? It's beautiful. He said, "The cleaning person in this building is every bit as much of a human being as the chairman." That was his mic drop moment, like how he decided to sign off as the CEO. Like,
What a great message.
what a great message, right?
Right.
That, I mean, and you know, the Beatles, in some ways, in terms of the reality, the Beatles had it right. Love is all you need.
Oh, no, it's absolutely right. I mean, actually, in some ways, I think this is like, you know, that's like the theme song of the book. It's
Yeah.
there. It's all in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you about Warren Buffett, but I think he would have had even more fun if he had said, okay, now I'm going to use this brain, which is, he has an amazing brain, right?
Amazing brain.
I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to take this money now, and what creative things can I do with this money? Because I mean, he was just going to give it to Bill Gates, but,
Right.
you know, but what could Warren have come up with?
Yeah.
And he's still alive, I believe. What could
He
he
is
do
still
right
alive,
now?
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
Warren?
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
What could he do if he took that immense amount of money and said, I wonder what creative things I could do with this. I would love to hear his ideas, because I'll bet they would be amazing.
That's a very good challenge. Like, hopefully Warren Buffett is listening to this. I did have the good fortune to spend 4 hours with him one afternoon. It was amazing, and hear him tell stories of all types of things during the global financial crisis. You know, when Lehman Brothers went out of business, and there were just so many things that he was really a hero during that time, because he was constantly saying America's best days are ahead, and everybody thought he was completely, not me, but a lot of people thought he was completely off his rocker, like the media pundits, and he was right.
You know, never bet against the U.S.
Yeah.
I've learned that one.
Yeah.
If you look back,
Did you actually try to bet against the U.S.?
No,
Okay.
it's a famous saying.
Yeah.
If you look back on the history of the U.S., we've had a lot of rough times
Yeah.
from the beginning, and yet here we are.
Yeah.
So, and there's a reason why we keep pulling things out at the last minute, which is, for about 500 years, we've been draining away some of the most creative entrepreneurial people from around the world to here. And so there's a reason why we're so creative and entrepreneurial, right? And it's kind of unfair that we do this to the rest of the world, but hey, they want to come, so I'm thrilled that they want to come.
Yeah. I want to ask you guys one question that I've never asked someone on the podcast. And it's because you guys have both read the book. So I'm really interested, because you have like a very kind of European perspective in terms of your mind. I know that you're like,
I definitely
you've joined
get the first
Foresight and it's like,
segment.
let's go fast. But you were raised differently, right?
Yeah.
We were both raised as Americans. So I just want your opinion. What is your favorite chapter of the Love Conquers Fear book?
It's the part where you describe how the influence, it's really this one sentence, and I wish I could quote it directly and tell you exactly the chapter, but it just stood out to me. You describe how we conceptualize fear, and you really say exactly this. I'm going to have to get it so we can put it in the footnote. This one sentence.
We'll put it in the show notes.
And it just hit me so hard that when we are all allowing and imagining fear so pervasively, what would be the exact opposite if we would imagine it from a perspective of love globally? So this is this one sentence for me that just was so powerful, the way that you phrased it. And it just blew my mind away, because it's really this idea of what you imagine does become your reality. And there's many threads that we can go off on that. But really what you allow yourself to imagine and then act on is the direct next step of a reality. And we've not been in a place where humanity has been so powerfully positive for so long. And coming from Europe to the US, I remember the first time I came and I flew and I had my cowboy boots. The first time I came down here, we were telling Christine about these boots. I was like so impressed with how people here were, and it was mostly in the Bay Area first, and then a bit in New York, and now in Austin. I can't distinguish who's been friends for years or not. Sometimes there's someone walking their dog and they're friends, and they have this optimism, and entrepreneurship is such a deep part of the culture here, and it's something you fight against in every single way in the UK and in Europe. So it's really something that stood out for me, that if you have that ability to hold that frame so strongly for so many people as a cultural work, what could be done with it? So it's this one sentence. I'm gonna
No, so that had to be in chapter 1 of Conquering
Fear.
Fear.
It was really early.
I don't know what the sentence was, but because that's the second longest chapter in the book. The longest chapter is actually what is our reality, but chapter 1 is, then that's chapter 12.
And because I studied a lot of language and psychology of language and how it forms our perception of the world, that is for me such a known thing, that the way you think, it's like the post-structuralists and what Nietzsche is also talking about language. It's such an important, easy tool that we have to do that. And you said it in this context of technology and progress and where we're going. And it was great.
Yeah, thank you.
And I have to say that if I'm going to have my sovereign AI system, I want this book as one of the trusted references.
Awesome. We'll make it happen.
So we have it. So we need the agentic, we need the markdown file ready.
Yeah. It's ready.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not so much a philosopher myself. I'm very practical. So while I loved the book in general, my favorite part is the sort of the case studies at the end where you're going, well, let's look at Costa Rica, let's look at Bhutan, let's look at this, let's look at that. And my favorite one of those was probably Cosmos Institute.
Oh yeah,
and
they're here in Austin.
I know they are. I know they are.
Wait, have you met them?
Allison knows Brendan. Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, they know each other.
I think they are doing such magnificent work.
Right.
I'm so impressed.
Right. So when I hit that chapter, I'm like, Foresight and Cosmos are pretty closely related in terms of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it, and the basic philosophy, the underlying principles and the values, they're just super aligned. So that really spoke to me. It's like, okay, yes, as I went through the book, it's like, oh, I see how Foresight fits with this. And then at the end, it's like, you explain, all right, here's how Cosmos fits. And so to me, it's like, okay, this is exactly, you understand exactly what we're doing at Foresight. It's 100% aligned. So it just made me, it almost felt like, oh, he's covering us. We're here. We're represented in the book.
Yeah, that's true.
We're appreciated.
No, that's a really, really good parallel. That's a very, I don't know. I'm going to come to your event in November. I can't wait to do that. But they tend to dive even more into kind of philosophy and economics, I guess, is the difference. But I don't know. I'll know after I attend Foresight. And after I attend Foresight, I'll report back on the podcast on what that was like. But I think they're doing magnificent work. I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah, I love their value system.
Yeah, and just in general, the case studies section, the new models for humanity, is really to educate people on things like during the height of the Cold War, we were programmed to hate the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was programmed to hate us, but yet our greatest scientists found a way to work together to make sure smallpox wasn't an extinction event. And I do see the same thing happening now with AI. I think we're at the beginning stages of leaders saying we have to figure out how to work together to create the best outcome, and that leaves me more hopeful than I was when I started the book, because that wasn't happening when I started writing.
Right. Now we just have to make it happen. So
Exactly.
that's a project for us. We can work on it.
Well, I really appreciate both of you. I'm so happy you're here in Austin. I can't wait to connect you with many more people here. And thanks for all you do. Thanks for being on this journey for 40 years now.
Well, I'm so glad to have some help with Allison and
Of course.
and the
Well,
team.
and have the confidence too to really pass the baton.
You have to do it. In fact, I'll just
Yeah.
send a message to the boomers out there. You have an obligation to not just die in the saddle and let your company or nonprofit just fail, which so many leaders do.
Yeah.
I think you have an obligation to develop young talent. And if it takes a few tries, that's not unusual.
Yeah.
Because running these things is hard. It takes an unusual person. So, yeah, we have to do that. It's irresponsible to not do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great note. And I'll just ask you real quickly. Do you know Bob Metcalf?
I've met him.
Okay. Because he's a pretty famous MIT grad in
Sure.
Austin. And he's done a really good job of that. Like every 10 years, he looks at 10 years as like a career, and then he's reinvented himself every 10 years. So he spent 10 years really alongside Josh Baer. I did this for a year, and he helped me out when I did it at UT. I was entrepreneur in residence for a year. But he spent 10 years at UT Austin really helping with commercialization of the technology there and starting the Longhorn Startup Program with Josh, which ran for 12 years, I think, to really help student entrepreneurs find their way.
Nice.
So he did a good job of that. You'd be MIT proud of
I
him
am
for that.
absolutely proud.
Well, thank you again so very much.
We'll be back soon.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's
Awesome.
right.
Well, thanks again, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of Love Conquers Fear. I can't wait until the Foresight Institute comes to Austin. You heard it here first, and I'm just super excited to have hosted them last night for dinner. Allison is amazing. We'll also have her on the podcast in the future, and stay tuned. A lot of amazing episodes coming up. If you missed the episode with Jason Ballard, that is a fantastic episode. It's incredible when you think about what we're going to be able to build with nanotech. We talked about nanotech on this podcast, and Jason, you'll realize why he's the perfect person to have founded and lead Icon Construction, which won the moon-based contract and a bunch of other things with 3D printed homes, and how we're going to have a level of precision in building, which is really, really incredible and unparalleled. Also, Jeff Cardenas was on a past episode as well, a couple of episodes ago. And Jeff and what he's doing at Apptronic with robots is absolutely incredible. So that's another amazing episode. And then part 3 of the decoding series came out, and it was on decoding leadership and really how to lead with love, which is, we talked a lot about that on this episode. So keep the love coming. I'm getting around 3 to 4 messages a day now about the book and how it's moving people, and that really fuels me. Tell people about it. tell people about the podcast. And also, if you haven't tuned into the weekly newsletter I have, it's called the Superfecta Signal. I created that newsletter because I wanted to be up to date on the latest positive news coming out with AI, quantum computing, robotics, and brain-computer interfaces, and then also on the nature of consciousness. And the 15th issue of that came out this past Sunday as I'm recording this. So by the time you read this, it'll probably be on issue number 17 or 18. So that's another free resource that you can tune into. And if you read that every week, you are going to feel much more positive about the future, because it is incredible the time that we're in. A week of tech progress right now feels like a year, 10 years ago. I can't imagine what it's going to feel like 10 years from now. It'll be like a couple of hours. It is really just an incredible time to be alive. And thank you again for all the love you're sending my way.